Good afternoon, my name is Mike Bennett, and this week we are covering the intro topics to performance management systems and how reward systems function in the context of an organization. We'll start with some key topics. We will look over the definition of performance management, look at its specific contribution to the workplace. We'll look at some dangers and disadvantages of poorly implemented performance management systems. Historically, we have seen some drastic consequences when performance management systems are implemented incorrectly or have lacked thorough planning, so we'll explore that just a bit. We'll look at the aims and the role of performance management systems within the workplace and how those strive to integrate individual goals with organizational goals. And we will also look at the specific integration of performance management with other human resource and development activities such as selection, promotion, reward systems, and we will wrap it up with a conclusion. So the summary statement for the week that encompasses all of these points together and serves to be the defining statement for the presentation is that performance management is a crucial function of human resources that must be implemented effectively in order to maximize organizational and individual goals and minimize those organizational and individual losses. The key words there are implemented effectively. As we'll soon see, we must be sure that it is implemented effectively in order to avoid dire consequences. So as we explore the definition of performance management, our textbook, Aguinas, I believe is how you would say the author's name here, defines it as a continuous cycle that is centered around improving performance at every level and the unity of performance and organizational strategic goals. I would even take it a step further and say that it is the unity of individual and organizational goals. Performance is transcendent among the individual, team, and organizational level, and as that performance increases, the strategic goals become realized, and performance management is the means to that end. As we've seen in the textbook, it is used around the world to further both of those goals, individual and organizational. We did have some examples that are available for review in the textbook about how different countries are implementing these performance management systems and what that looks like around the world and the benefits that they are reaping from implementing those systems. It's important here to talk about the distinct and stark difference between performance appraisal and performance management, where performance appraisal is that once, maybe twice a year conversation that you would have with a manager regarding your performance and just having some comments on your performance that you sign off on, and that is more of a formally structured, very rigid conversation. Performance management steps in and is a more consistent evaluation that occurs more than once or twice a year and is an ongoing process between management and individual in which development personally and professionally is prioritized and serves to grow the individual into the team and organizational goals. So as we explore the performance management contribution, again, our author Aguinas lists 16 specific contributions that an effective performance management can make in the workplace. Some of the most significant ones that I've noted here include better protection from lawsuits. As we'll see, poorly implemented systems can result in significant lawsuits. We'll cover that in just a moment here. Another significant contribution from performance management systems is fair and appropriate administrative actions, such as that selection, hiring, firing, including compensation, raises, and then the facilitation of organizational change. So moving towards that organizational goal and striving to change for the better in all of performance encompassed with the individual, the team, and the organizational level. You also have improved employee engagement. It not only increases the engagement, but it increases the motivation of employees to be engaged in the workplace and to have a voice to strive for change and to speak up to make those changes realized within their team and their organization. As you can see here, it's noted that the specific contributions listed in the textbook is not all-encompassing, so the contribution is not limited to the list specifically, and the research on the contribution of effective performance management systems is still advancing. As we transition to look at the disadvantages and dangers of poorly implemented performance management systems, we see that the textbook provides 12 clear disadvantages, ranging from lowered self-esteem of the employees that are involved in the system to increased risk of litigation. So that's a subjective analysis that I was looking at the disadvantages there, and lowered self-esteem, albeit being an important disadvantage, The key disadvantage here would be the increased risk of litigation. Lawsuits can be detrimental to not only the financial, but the image of a corporation. And so that increased risk of litigation is of the highest risks associated with the disadvantages of poorly implemented systems. And as crucial as it is, organization would be better without performance management than with a poor one. We see that in the example that's noted here, the $1.2 million lawsuit that was mentioned in our textbook against a corporation that unfairly cut a woman's salary and her position title. That lawsuit was initiated after she had her salary cut by, I believe, $20,000 was the example it gave per year. And the lawsuit was detrimental to the company, to their public relations, and to their finances. There you can see the $1.2 million hit was a big deal. So it is important that we do prioritize performance management systems, but more than that, prioritize to strive in implementing those correctly and fairly across the board to avoid instances like this. So how do we implement an effective one? Well, we look at the aims and the role of a performance management system. We look at the 6 purposes that our author Aguinas outlines as strategic, administrative, informational, developmental, organizational maintenance, and documentational. Now, he also does state that the 2 most frequent purposes are administrative and developmental. So looking at that, we look at the administrative functions there. The purposes are those selection, hiring, firing. And then developmental, we look at training, development, and implementation, and how to grow, as we said previously, growing individuals into their team, into their own performance, and into organizational goals. Those would be the 2 most frequent and most used purposes of performance management. Although the other 4 purposes are important, these 2 are used most frequently and can reap the most benefits when a performance management system is implemented properly in the workplace. And as you can see here, we mentioned that performance management, when the performance management system is designed using these purposes as a guide, the organization is much more likely to achieve the strategic goals that are set forth by the C-suite, your CEOs, your COOs, in order to reach the performance, the revenue return, and all of the other elements that are key to an organization's success. If the system is designed correctly, then we're much more likely to achieve those goals. So how does performance management integrate with other HR functions and development activities, like that training and development example that we just covered? Well, performance management systems supply critical information for other HR functions and activities. So we think of performance management as kind of the information system that will feed into other HR activities in order to make informed HR decisions like the selection, the compensation, the raises, the hiring, the firing. The key contributor to workforce planning is performance management. As you can see here, development plans, again, we touch on recruitment and hiring. And this is where we turn and we see how important this performance management system truly is in the workplace. Without an effective performance management system, workforce planning cannot occur effectively. So we need to key in on using this correctly in order to plan in the workforce from an HR standpoint. Its relation to compensation cannot be understated. As we can see from the diagram here, performance feeds into rewards, or it should in an effective system. Employees should be rewarded for their performance, which then increases their satisfaction, and we can even cycle back around and say that would also increase their performance once again. So this performance management system is designed to create a cyclical relationship between performance, rewards, and satisfaction that consistently feed into one another to improve satisfaction and performance within the employee, within the team, and within the organization. Keep all of these in mind. We're going to look at the questions for this week. The first one is our biblical integration question that will be posted along with this PowerPoint as a written question in the discussion board. So looking at our biblical integration question, we ask, how can we as believers use the main purposes of performance management to shape our view of Scripture? So how does our view of performance management apply to our view of Scripture and our view of ourselves when we read and interpret Scripture? And then our integration question for how it integrates into daily life or into an important system in the workplace. This is a question that's near and dear to my heart, as I really enjoy the workplace that I work in, so I hope that you guys can reflect on this question in regards to your current workplace. It is, how can an effective performance management system benefit professional relationships in the workplace. So when we implement that effective performance management system, how do we see employee relationships increase at the team level, at the employee management level, and then at the organizational level as a whole? And here you'll see our reference is our textbook. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to email me. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll look forward to hearing from you all in the coming weeks.